Ghostly tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese, Ghostly Tales from Zhai. Today, I'm going to tell you a story called Nian Part 2. Years after the incident involving Wang Zixuan, a similar event occurred with a man named Wu Anren. Wu Anren had been living in the city for quite some time. At the age of 30, he lost his wife and moved to an empty study all by himself. One day, a scholar came to chat with him, and they hit it off quite well. The scholar brought along a young servant named Gui To, who got along famously with Wu Anren's book servant. Over time, Wu Anren discovered that they were all fox spirits, but he didn't mind at all. Whenever Wu Anren went on a long journey, they would always accompany him. Even though all four of them lived in the same room, others couldn't see the scholar and his servant. Wu Anren often traveled to the capital, and once, as he was preparing to return home from there, he heard about Wang Zixuan's encounter with Nian. He cautioned his book servant to be vigilant. The fox spirit scholar just chuckled and said, "You don't have to worry too much. This time, the journey will surely go smoothly." They first arrived in Zhuai and saw a man tying his horse outside a smokehouse. He was dressed neatly and luxuriously. When the man saw Wu Anren passing by, he stood up, mounted his horse, and followed behind. Gradually, the man struck up a conversation with Wu Anren. He said, "My surname is Huang, I'm from Shandong, and I came to the capital to deliver official documents to the Ministry of Revenue. Now that my business is done, I'm heading east to return home. I'm glad to travel with you and your servant, so I won't feel lonely on the road." Whenever Wu Anren stopped, Huang would also stop. Each time they ate together, Huang would insist on paying the bill. Although Wu Anren expressed gratitude outwardly, he still harbored suspicions inwardly. He privately asked the fox spirit scholar, who simply replied, "It's okay, you don't need to worry." Hearing this, Wu Anren relaxed. In the evening, they found a place to stay together, but to their surprise, a handsome youth was already seated in the inn. As soon as Huang entered, he bowed to the young man and joyfully asked, "When did you leave the capital?" The youth replied, "Yesterday." Huang then invited him to stay with them and introduced him to Wu Anren, saying, "This is Shi, my cousin, also a scholar. He can accompany you in discussing poetry and literature so that the night won't be boring." Huang then took out money to buy food and drinks for everyone. Shi was elegant and learned, and he and Wu Anren admired each other. During the drinking, the youth often signaled to Wu Anren to cheat together during drinking games, so they could collectively make Huang drink more. This amused everyone, and they laughed heartily. Wu Anren grew to like the youth even more. Not long after, Shi and Huang discussed gambling again, and they persuaded Wu Anren to join them in gambling. So, everyone took out money from their pockets to use as gambling stakes. The fox spirit quietly instructed Wu Anren's servant, Bauer, to secretly lock the door and advised Wu Anren. If you hear any commotion outside, just lie down, pretend to sleep, and don't move. Wu Anren agreed. Every time Wu Anren rolled the dice, he would lose when betting small amounts but win when betting large amounts. By the time midnight arrived, he had won over 200 taels of silver. Shi and Huang emptied their money pouches and discussed using their horses as collateral. Just then, they suddenly heard loud knocking at the door. Wu Anren quickly stood up, threw the dice into the fire, and swiftly covered himself with the blanket to feign sleep. After a while, they heard the innkeeper outside saying he couldn't find the key and had to break open the door locks to open the guests' rooms. As soon as the door opened, several people burst in aggressively, claiming they were searching for gamblers. Shi and Huang denied gambling. One person even lifted Wu Anren's blanket, accusing him of gambling. Wu Anren refuted the accusation. Several people then forcibly searched Wu Anren's luggage. Just as Wu Anren was about to succumb to the resistance, they suddenly heard the rebuke of officials passing by outside with a large entourage of vehicles and horses. Wu Anren hurriedly ran out shouting, causing the group to panic and quickly pull him back into the room, begging him not to make a scene. Wu Anren calmly handed over his bundle to the innkeeper. Soon after, the procession of officials moved away, and the group left the room. Huang and Shi acted surprised and began looking for beds to sleep in. Huang even suggested that Shi share a bed with Wu Anren. Wu Anren placed the bundle tied to his waist under his head as a pillow before pulling the blanket over himself to sleep. Not long after, Shi lifted Wu Anren's blanket and slipped naked into his embrace, whispering softly, "I admire your honesty and integrity and wish to be close to you." Although Wu Anren knew it was deception, he thought it wouldn't hurt, so he cuddled up with him. The next morning, Shi appeared exhausted and couldn't get out of bed. He feigned illness and asked Wu Anren and Huang to leave first. As Wu Anren left, he gave Shi some money as medical expenses. On the way, Wu Anren secretly spoke to the fox spirit and learned that the procession of officials from the night before was all an illusion created by the fox spirit. Huang was especially caring towards Wu Anren on the journey. That evening, they stayed at the same inn, where the room was small and could only accommodate one bed, but it was warm and clean. Feeling the bed was too narrow, Wu Anren commented, and Huang said, "This room is indeed narrow for 2 people. If you sleep alone, it will be spacious enough. It's not a big deal." After dinner, Huang left. Wu Anren also preferred to stay alone in a room, so he could entertain his fox friend. After waiting for a long time, the fox seemed not to arrive. Suddenly, he heard the sound of fingers tapping on the window frame outside. Wu Anren went to check and found a young woman dressed elaborately entering. She smiled at Wu Anren and revealed herself as the innkeeper's daughter-in-law. They became intimate and enamored with each other. Suddenly, the woman burst into tears. Wu Anren asked her why, and she confessed, "I dare not hide it from you. I was sent by the innkeeper to seduce you. Normally, as soon as I enter the room, someone will come to capture us. But tonight, no one has come yet." She continued. I'm not an evil person and I resent doing this. Now that I've poured my heart out to you, I beg you to save me. Wu Anren was terrified but couldn't think of a solution. He urged her to leave quickly, but she refused and continued crying. Suddenly, they heard Huang and the innkeeper knocking fiercely at the door, shouting angrily outside. Wu Anren was frightened and forced the woman to leave quickly. They heard noises outside the window as well. Wu Anren was sweating profusely, and the woman continued to sob. Shortly after, they heard someone trying to reason with the innkeeper, but the innkeeper refused to listen and continued to bang on the door more urgently. The person trying to console the innkeeper said, "Innkeeper, what do you intend to do? Do you want to harm them? With us here, we won't stand by and let you commit violence. If one of the two inside the room manages to escape, it will be difficult to bring them to justice. Should we take them to the yamen for trial? It will only expose your lax discipline at home, and ultimately bring disgrace upon yourself. Moreover, you run an inn. If there are problems here, it will inevitably appear as if you are conspiring to defraud your guests. And if your daughter-in-law says anything she shouldn't, what then?" The innkeeper, wide-eyed, had nothing to say. Wu Anren listened and silently thanked and admired the person outside the door for their intervention, though he didn't know who it was. Before this, as the inn was about to close, a scholar with a servant arrived at the courtyard of the inn to stay. He brought good wine and invited all the guests in the inn, especially the innkeeper and Huang, to taste it. After a while of drinking, the innkeeper and Huang wanted to leave, but the scholar held on to their clothes, earnestly trying to keep them from leaving. Eventually, they found an opportunity to slip away and rushed to Wu Anren's room with sticks in hand. Upon hearing the commotion, the scholar came to intervene. Wu Anren peeked out of the window and discovered that the scholar was actually his fox friend, feeling secretly delighted. At this point, the innkeeper's momentum had been deflated, and he could only bluster. Wu Anren asked the woman, "Why aren't you saying anything?" The woman cried, "I now regret everything I've done, making everyone who knows feel that I am contemptible." Upon hearing their conversation, the innkeeper turned pale with fright. The scholar scolded, "What you've done is worse than animals. It's all been exposed now. In the future, none of us guests will dare to stay in your inn again." At this, both Huang and the innkeeper dropped their weapons, kneeling and begging for forgiveness. Wu Anren also came out, angrily berating them. The scholar then mediated between Wu Anren and the others, and they finally reconciled. The woman cried again, refusing to go back. Several maids and old women rushed out from inside, dragging the woman back into the room. She collapsed on the ground, crying even more bitterly. The scholar suggested to the innkeeper to sell the woman to Wu Anren at a high price. The innkeeper, with his head bowed, said, "Never thought that after doing business for so many years, today I'd end up with nothing. Since it's come to this, what more can I say?" He then agreed to the scholar's suggestion. Wu Anren refused to pay more money, so the scholar mediated between the parties, and they eventually agreed to purchase the woman for 50 taels of silver. After both sides exchanged money, the morning bell rang, so they packed up and left with the woman. The woman had never ridden a horse before, and soon felt exhausted. At noon, the group took a short rest. When it was time to leave, Wu Anren called for Bauer, but he was nowhere to be found. After waiting for a while and seeing the sun already setting in the west, Wu Anren was puzzled and asked the fox. The fox scholar said, "Do not worry, he'll be back soon." The stars and moon appeared before Bauer returned. Wu Anren questioned him, and Bauer smiled and said, "Last night, you gave 50 taels of silver to those thieves, which made me feel indignant. Just now, I discussed with Gui To and went back to retrieve the money." With that, he placed the silver on the table. Wu Anren was amazed and asked for the reason. It turned out that the little fox, Gui To, knew that the woman actually only had one elder brother who hadn't returned from a distant journey in over 10 years. Gui To transformed into her brother's appearance and had Bao impersonate her younger brother, going to the innkeeper's house to look for the woman. The innkeeper was frightened upon seeing them and lied, saying that the woman had died of illness. The two then pretended to call for officials. The innkeeper, even more afraid, bribed them with silver, increasing the bribe to 40 taels before they agreed to leave. Bao recounted the whole process. Wu Anren then gave the money back to Bao. After returning home, Wu Anren and the woman became a loving couple, and the Wu family became even wealthier under their management. Later, Wu Anren asked the woman about her origins in detail, only to find out that the handsome young man he encountered on the road was the woman's husband, who was surnamed Jin instead of Shi. She had obtained the hickory silk shawl she was wearing from a man surnamed Wang in Shandong. It turned out that this group of swindlers had many accomplices, including the innkeeper, who were all in cahoots. And who would have thought that the thieves Wu Anren encountered were actually the same group of people that Wang Zixuan had encountered before? This coincidence led to the ultimate punishment for this group of people, which was truly satisfying. As the ancients said, "Those who can ride horses often fall off more easily." Alright. That's all for today's ghostly tale. Nian Part 2. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.